Hello everybody, this is GeneralJannis, and today I'm looking at the Guard Torrent Weapons that are the Plague Flamers that are auto-hitting, auto-spreading the disease of Nurgle across the table and crushing, hopefully, our enemies. So with no further ado, let's get started. So today we have the 17th of March 2024, Equinox fast approaching, and in Denmark I can tell you the days are getting considerably lighter, and today even we had the sun shining. So that's that's a first, almost it feels like that. So I had a comment from my previous video from the Disgusting Resilient channel. So Aiden Smalley, a very strong and experienced player. I asked him what type of things did he want to analyze, and he said he'd like to see the Guard Torrent weapons, their damage output versus marine equivalents, elite infantry, light and heavy vehicles, guard equivalent, and so on. He has been running a list with 28 flamers, and it's surprisingly good against most things apart from the 2+ save tanks like land raiders. It would be cool to see the stats and also bonus points for me if I factor the -1 save and Lord of Virulence buffs, etc. So of course I wanted to look at this. So in this video I will be analyzing all the Guard Torrent weapons. The Torrent weapons, of course, are auto-hitting, and they are typically good anti-infantry. They have typically anti-infantry in their profile, and this is also very strong to Overwatch. Please remember that, because then you will be auto-hitting and you don't need to roll the 6s here. So I'll start by looking at the weapons, then the units and squads, how they compare, and then some final thoughts. So in this table, I'm showing you the Guard and the Torrent weapons. Let me know if I forgot something. I hope I didn't. But basically, we have our Deathshroud Terminators that can be buffed by the Lord of Virulence. They have the Plague Spurt Gauntlet, not very strong, but has an anti-infantry 4+. The Lord of Virulence, he has the Twin Plague Spewer, anti-infantry 2+, stronger weapon like the Spewer for the Plague Marines, but it has the twin linked, so you can reroll all to wound. This is a good buff for Torrent weapons, of course, because you don't have the hit roll. The FoetidBloatdrone and the Plague Scroller, they can have the Plague Speeders, they can have 2 each, and a bit stronger weapon here. Also anti-infantry and ignoring cover. The Blightspawn, he has a nice damage 2 Plague Sprayer here, so always a favorite of mine from 9th edition, I would say. The Plague Marines, they have 2 options of Torrent weapons. We have the Plague Spewer, which is basically like Lord of Virulence Twin Plague Spewer, Strength 5, AP -1, damage 1. And then a bit more lackluster, the Plague Belcher, Strength 4, AP 0, damage 1. Typically, I wouldn't take that one, but I'll analyze this one also here, and I've made a squad with both Plague Spewers and Plague Belchers. The Plague Belcher is a bit more tricky to take because it's on the same slot where you could take Meltas or Plasmas, which typically could be better, but like for the sake of Torrents, let's also look at the Plague Belchers. And then finally the Malignant Plaguecaster. I had forgot about this one because it's not really a flame weapon, but his Witchfire, the Plague Wind, is quite interesting. D3 damage, D6 attacks if it's not focused. If he makes it focused, then hits Strength 6, AP -2, damage D3, D6 +3 shots. So you get some consistency on the shots here. So this is quite interesting, as we will see. Of course, then he would be subject to mortal wounds if he hits a 1 for the hazardous test. But then maybe he can have some Plague Marine bodyguards taking the wounds. So and then in general, for Torrent weapons, nothing, they cannot be buffed by hit modifiers, biologus critical hits, or gaining sustained hits. Doesn't matter because there is no hit roll involved, no rerolls to hit, +1 to hit. So Taliman, biologus, and things like that don't really help us here. So the best buffs here would be for a flamer weapon to get some wound roll modifiers or rerolls. Anything that can improve the AP. You see APs -1 to -2 or 0. And this also, of course, is helped by our contagion, mean -1 toughness to the enemy. And also if we take the reduce -1 enemy save, this counts also basically as improving the AP. And the Ferric Blight stratagem can be really handy here, improving the AP by -1. I haven't factored that in here, but I'll show you the -1 save. And if you are close to an objective, corrupt objective, you would get you could get -2. So no penalty for Overwatch for Torrent Weapons. And in this table we have the damage output of all the Torrent weapons without any contagion or buffs, other buffs included here. So we see here from the Plague Spurt Gauntlet down to the focused Witchfire Plague Wind. For the damage output for a variety of targets, the commas in the table are just my decimal points here in my Danish Excel. And we have, of course, the guard equivalent. The marine equivalent is the intercessors here. We have the terminators and blight lords, like terminator or elite infantry equivalents. Light vehicle could be a rhino or a gladiator maybe, and the heavy vehicle would be the land raider here. And we see that the most damaging with no further buffs and contagions is the Malignant Plaguecaster's focused Witchfire. So he could be killing 2 Terminators or 1 Terminator killed on average here with a hazardous, like the focused impact. The Fall Blightspawn also stands out with a little bit more damage. He can kill. He can also kill two Marines, and he can put 2 wounds on a Terminator. And if we see the Plague Spewer with the anti-infantry 2+, it can do more damage versus infantry compared to the Plague Belcher that also lacks on AP. So you can see the Plague Belcher damage output is not as strong as the Plague Spewer, and the twin Plague Spewer from the Lord of Virulence, it shows you the improvement compared to the Plague Spewer just by the rerolling wounds. And we see overall not very easy to do high damage on, let's say, a Land Raider or something like this. So we can see a bit more damage, not so much damage on vehicles as expected. Then in this table we see the damage output for the weapons. Now the enemy is in contagion, so the enemy is in -1 toughness contagion, and we assume that you have selected the -1 save to the contagion, or it could be the same effect if you use the Ferric Blight to improve the AP. And here you can see the Plague Spurt Gauntlet, and here I've added also the Lord of Virulence buff where you can reroll the wound roll. And you can see the Plague Spurt Gauntlet, instead of giving, let's say, 0.9 wounds on an intercessor, it would give you 1.3 wounds. You get a little bit more wounds here. And of course, for a big squad, as we will see later on, it can make quite a big impact with a lot of d6s of gauntlets, also with the full rerolls that can really help you. And then we have also for all the other weapons with a -1 toughness, -1 save. If you pause and compare the tables from the previous slide, you can print them out maybe. You can see that everything is being improved by the -1 toughness and -1 save on the enemy, and you see the quite impressive damage from the Malignant Plaguecaster. He can be killing 3, almost 4 intercessors, and killing 1 Terminator here with a focused Witchfire. Now moving away from the weapons themselves and just looking at squads and units with the Torrent weapons, what comes to mind here is a 10 Plague Marine squad where we have the 2 Plague Spewers possible. Then we, as the special weapon, we take the 2 Plague Belchers. In this squad I've just added 4 heavy weapons for more melee combat. If you have Spewer weapons, you will need to be in 12-inch to make some damage. And yeah, then you would probably also be involved in melee. You can stand back and shoot with your Spewer weapons. And therefore, having the melee weapons is helpful. Here I've added 1 Blight Launcher for the 5th weapon. The champion has the Plasma Gun and the Heavy Plague weapon. And then we add the Malignant Plaguecaster as the leader with his nice Plague Wind, and the Foul Blightspawn also giving us fight first for this squad. So this will give us 2d6 shots with the Spewers, 2d6 shots with the Belchers, 1d6 shot with Foul Blightspawn Sprayer, and then 1d6 plus 3 shots of the Plague Wind. So quite not bad, and for Overwatch that would also be quite nasty. Then, of course, the 6 Deathshroud Terminators with Lord of Virulence. This is 320 points. This will give you a 7d6s of Plague Spurt Gauntlets, plus 1d6 of the Twin Plague Spewer, and rerolling all to wound here. So quite a lot of auto hits, wounding infantry on 4+, but rerolling everything with the gauntlets can give you quite good damage output, as we will also see. And then the FoetidBloatdrone 90 points for the 2 speeders, that gives you 2d6 shots. And for 180 points, you get the Plague Scroller with 2 Spitters, the Mortar, and the Volley Gun. As a benchmark for these squads, I was thinking what could probably be one of the best auto Overwatch and Flamer weapons in the game. I was thinking 10 Rubric Marines and Ahriman from Thousand Suns. That will give 9d6 Warp Flamer shots, plus 1d6 from the Warp Flamer pistol, plus 1 to wound from Ahriman, and rerolling ones to wound. The innate Rubric Marines, they could be rerolling all to wound if there is close to an objective, but here I just took the reroll ones to wound. So here we have all these squads, the damage output shooting from 12 inches, not point corrected. This is the actual expected damage you would get. And here we see first the Plague Marines with a Flamer configuration with Malignant Plaguecaster and Fall Blightspawn, and then you see the buffing if the enemy is in contagion and you have the -1 save, or if you have, let's say, the Ferric Blight. And we can see some very impressive damage from this Plague Marine squad. So killing 20 intercessors in contagion, 20 wounds on intercessors, so then that would be 10 dead marine equivalents, almost 4 terminators killed, 6 wounds on a land raider, so that's also quite nice. 9 wounds on a light vehicle. It's not bad actually, just from with the Flamer weapons here. The Deathshroud Terminators with Lord of Virulence, they can also do something, especially when the enemy is in contagion. For marine equivalents, they can kill 5 here. 2.5 killed Terminators. A lot of guardsmen can go down. Not so much damage for the vehicles, but then the Deathshroud are really lethal in melee as well. The FoetidBloatdrone with the Spitters, not super impressive. It could kill maybe 2 intercessors if the intercessors are in contagion. Not huge damage output, but it's fast and it can help spread the contagion for the rest of the army. And if we look at the Plague Scroller with the Spitters and Volley Gun configuration, I would assume here rapid firing at 12-inch range. Then you get a bit of damage here. The Spitters is basically what the FoetidBloatdrone does, and the rest is the Mortar and the Volley Gun. You can do some nice damage, but probably Plague Scroller is better standing back with Entropy Cannons. And then the Rubrics with the Warp Flamers plus Ahriman, they are really lethal against the Termagants and Necron Warriors and things like that, but they can't beat the Plague Marines actually versus intercessors, terminators, and elite and vehicles. If they are not as strong there, they don't have the anti-infantry on the Warp Flamers, so even with +1 to wound, quite interestingly, the Plague Marines with four Torrent Weapons and Malignant Plaguecaster and Fall Blightspawn can do more damage here. I didn't expect that, so that's quite interesting, but they are not as good as in this role, which I thought would be completely different before I compiled the table. So summarizing everything, overall per point comparison, what you saw in the previous tables, I've added also a more standard Plague Marine, 10 Plague Marine squad with Biologus Purifiers, with Meltas, Blight Launchers, and heavy Plague Weapons like I analyzed in my previous table. Here you see the point corrected damage per 100 points versus the average of the infantry you saw on the previous page, and then you see also the damage versus the average of vehicles that you saw in the previous page. So here we see the first squad is the Spewer squad, so you can do some nice shooting damage. They are not as good in melee as the full, let's say, more melee-oriented squad with Biologus Purifier, but their shooting is not as good versus vehicles as the Melta squad and the Blight Launchers with Biologus, as I've put here, per 100 points. The Deathshroud Terminators with Lord of Virulence, not as good shooting as the Plague Marines with Malignant Plaguecaster and Fall Blightspawn, but excel in melee with their Man Reapers. Here we also have the Rubrics in comparison here, and then the FoetidBloatdrone with the Spitters, not very strong damage output per point, but it's fast and can spread the contagion. And then the last 4 lines here, you can see if we add the contagion and -1 save on top of that. Reaching to the summary and final thoughts, I was quite surprised when I did the math that the Malignant Plaguecaster and Blightspawn and the Torrent Plague Marines, they can do quite a lot, and also in Overwatch. So this could be an interesting or a bit alternative build for overwatching, maybe keeping them in a central objective, holding that objective, and then remembering to use also the Ferric Blight in this situation where you can overwatch. And if the opponent charges you, you have also Blightspawn, so they can fight first with a heavy plague weapons. You can deal some quite a lot of damage with the Overwatch, and of course Deathshroud Terminators plus Lord of Virulence seems like a good strong combo. The Deathshroud are really strong in melee, and they can shoot out of deep strike. You could deep strike them, shoot at something, and then charge something else. I will do some more thorough analysis. I probably be my next video with Deathshroud Terminators, also to see what Lord of Contagion could do, or Typhus instead of Lord of Virulence, or some of the other options. But Lord of Virulence helps their Plague Spurt gauntlets, and if you're fighting something with, if you're facing a lot of chaffy, let's say, enemies, then the gauntlets with Lord of Virulence can really do a lot. The FoetidBloatdrone, as I said, not very much damage. It can be harassing some light units on the flank, but it's fast and cheap way to spread the contagion. As we have seen for many of these tables, if the enemy is in contagion, we can quite boost our damage output. And the Plague Crawler, although it could work with the Spitters, probably better with Entropy Cannon and Slugger. So this completes the video. Let me know what you think, and as always, post your questions as comments to the video, and if you have something you want to see analyzed, and I can answer in another video when I have time. So with no further ado, yeah, that's it for me, and thanks everybody for watching. Enjoy a nice Sunday, and bye bye.